We're starting from the bottom of Daf Ayin Hey Amid Beis. I read a few words over here yesterday, but I stopped in the middle. So we're starting from the last few words where it talks about the words that it says, Lechem Abirim, regarding the man. Davar Acher, another pshat, what the words Lechem Abirim mean. Lechem Abirim Ochal Ish. So this Lechem Abirim, Ish ate them. Who's Ish? Zeh Yeshua. This refers to Yeshua, Shiur Leimon Keneged Kol Yisrael. That man came down for him as much as it came down for all the Yidden. This, as Rashi says, refers to the time when Yeshua followed Moshe Rabbeinu till the mountain, and Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. So when he was waiting there for Moshe Rabbeinu, he got man as much as all the Yidden. So how do we know that Ish refers to Yeshua? Ksiv Acha Ish. The pasuk here says Ish. Or Ksiv Hasam. In another place it says by Yeshua, Kach Lachos Yeshua Benun Ish Asher Ruach Bay. So I see that Ish is Yeshua. So the Gemara asks, Ve'eme Moshe. Maybe the expression of Ish refers to Moshe, D'chsiv or Ish Moshe on of Ma'od, that by Moshe it also uses the term Ve'a Ish. So the Gemara answers, Donin Ish Mi Ish. We compare the expression of Ish that it says by the man to Ish that it says regarding Yeshua, Ve'ein Donin Ish Mi Veha Ish. And we do not compare the expression of Ish to Veha Ish that it says by Moshe. Shalu Talmidav, this is Rab Shimon ben Yochai, or Rab Shimon ben Yochi. The students of Rab Shimon ben Yochai asked him, why didn't the man come down just once a year, enough man for the entire year? So he answered them, I'll give you the following mashal. What is this compared to? A human king, and he has one son. He gives him all of his food once a year, and he wouldn't come to greet his father only once a year when he had to get his food. So now the king changed the schedule, and he gives him the mezainis only for what he needs for that day, once a day. And now he came to greet his father every single day. So the same thing is also Af Yisrael, the Yidden as well. Mishi Yeshloi Abba v'chamisha banim. A person has 4 or 5 children. So what happens? Hayedayik v'oime shemel yered man lemachar v'nimtzu kulam meisim berav. So he's concerned maybe he's not going to have enough food, and everybody's going to die from hunger. Right? So now, as the Marsha over here says, that the Gemara says this is only if he has children. He's concerned that he's going to die because they had food that they bought from the Tagrei Umais, from the Goyim around them, as we learned in the Gemara before. So for himself and his wife, he would have enough. But if he has children, so then he's worried that he's not going to have enough. So therefore, and he's thinking to himself, maybe the man won't come down tomorrow. We're all going to die berav and hunger. So like this, you have all the Yidden that their hearts are connected to the Eibishter in heaven, and therefore the Eibishter makes the man come down once a day. Davar Acher, another pshat, why it comes down every day fresh, because the man they received, they ate it when it was still hot. Davar Acher, another pshat, if they're going to have enough man for the entire year when they're traveling, they're going to have to take this load of the man along with them, so they shouldn't want to do that to the Yidden. Another thing we learned about the man. They were sitting and talking about the parsha of the man. Rabbi Lazar Midoi was also sitting amongst them. Rabbi Lazar Midoi said as follows: Man, the man that came down for the Yidden, the height of the man that came down was 60 amas high. Amalei Rab Tarfon said to Rabbi Lazar Midoi, the one from Midoi, Ad Masay atem megaviv dvarem umevi aleinu. Until when are you going to gather these things and tell us without any source? Amalei, so he says to Rab Tarfon, Rebbe, mikrani deirish. I have a source from a pasuk that I'm darshaning based on a pasuk. And here he brings from a pasuk that it says by the Mabel, and based on this, he will show how he sees that by the man it was 60 amas high. What does it say by the Mabel? The water came very strong from above, and there was 15 amas, So it went 15 amas above the ground, and all the mountains were covered as well. So when we read the pasuk in the simple pshat, the first part of the pasuk, when it says that there was 15 amas that it covered everything. So it doesn't say, as Rashi explains, it doesn't say whether that refers to a mountain or a valley. What did it cover? So if we're going to read the pasuk in the simple sense that it went 15 amas above ground level in every place accordingly, whether it's a mountain or a valley. So then the question will be, does the pasuk mean to say that the water went above the ground 15 amas, whether it was in a valley, and the same 15 amas above the level of the ground, whether it was in a mountain? Could that be? Does the water stand up this way like a wall, that it's in the valley, and then there's a wall and it goes up by a mountain? That's impossible, at least not naturally. There is actually an opinion in the Medrash, the Mashar, he quotes that yes, this miracle did happen. V'oid, another question, Teve hechisagye. If it was not equal in all places, and the water was 15 amas above in the valley, and then in the mountain, and in each place accordingly, so then how did the teva get up to the top of the mountain where it went at the end of the mabul? Ella, rather, what happened by the mabul is as follows. The Bach here adds a few words. Meikarik siv. In the beginning, the Torah says by the mabul, nifku komaynes tahaim rabba. All the waters from below, under the earth, opened up, and that filled up the entire world. Ad ashvu maye bahadi turi, that the water that covered the entire world in one equal height, covering everything, all the mountains and all the valleys, and it covered all the mountains, and obviously by the valleys, the height of the water above the ground in the valleys was much more than the height of the water above the mountains, but it covered everything equally. So there was one equal height of water. Then, there was another 15 amas of rainwater that came down from above, Govra Mayim, the intensity of the water that came down from above. So, the point is here, we see that the water that came from above added a height of 15 amas to the water of the Mabul. Now we're bringing this back to the Mon. Which measure of the Eibishter is more? Midde teva and midde puranis. The measure that comes for the positive or for the negative. Of course we know always the measure for the positive is much more. Midde puranis, from the negative. So b'mid is puranis, so now what does it say here regarding this 15 amas of water that came down from above? How does the Torah describe this rainwater? That the windows of heaven opened up. When it comes in the positive, what does the pasuk say? Vayitzav shchokim mimoal. The Eibusha commanded the heavens above. The dalsei shemayim pasach, and the doors of heavens opened up. Vayamtar aleim man lechol, and the Eibusha brought down for them man v'dogan shemayim nosan lomei, and the grain from heaven he gave to the Yidden. So when it describes the man coming from Shemayim, it describes it as doors opening up. So the Bach here adds that this is a braise. V'tana, we learned in the braise. Kama arubes yesh bedeles. How many sizes of windows is there in a door? Arba. Four. Each door that is made up of the size of 4 windows. So if it says here a plural term that the Eibishter opened up, dalsei shemayim, so harei kan shmeina. So you have over here an opening which is the size of 8 windows. So, if it says by the Mabul that the height of the water that came down by the Mabul was 15 amas high, so by the Mon, where it says that the amount that opened up was Dalsei Shemayim, which is 8 times as much, so 8 times as much is V'nimtza Mon Sheyadalem L'Yisrael Gavoya Shishimama. So it comes out that the Mon that came down for Yidden is 60 amas high. This is the source of Rabbi Elazar Medoi, that he said that the Mon that came down was 60 amas high. The Gemara continues, another thing that it says regarding the Mabul. Regarding the Mon, that is. Tanya, that is, we learned in the Braisi. Isi ben Yehuda says, Mon sheyarad lem li Yisrael, the Mon that came down for the Yidden, hayim izgabe va'oile, it became stronger and it became more and more higher and higher, the pile of the man. It was such a high mountain that all the kings in the west and the east saw it. Shenemar, as we see from the pasuk that it says, Tarech lefanai shulchan neget tzeirodai. The Eibusher prepares a table of food for the Yidden, that all of the nations of the world, and even those that are enemies of the Yidden, saw them all over the world. So the Gemara continues. What does it say afterwards in the pasuk? Kaisi revoya. What does kaisi revoya mean? Amar Abaye. So Abaye said, Shma mina. From here I see Kasa de David la Almed Asi. This pasuk, which also refers to David HaMelech when Lasad Lavai. So the case of David HaMelech, and then in that time, Masen ve'esrin v'chad luge machzik. It's going to be the size of 221 lug. Shenemar kaisi revoya. His kais will be revoya. What is revoya? Begematria hachahave. That's the gematria of revoya. So the Gemara asks, going back now to the mabul and the man that we compared to what happened then by the mabul. That over here by the man, we learn from there the height of the man that came down. So the question is on this, how could you compare the two cases? It's not the same thing. Hasam barbam yoimin. There it came down the height of water, 15 amis, over the span of 40 days. Hacha chadashaite. Here we're talking about the man that comes down at once in the morning. So how can we say that over here, at one time it comes down in one morning, that we could compare it to the height of the mabul that comes down over the span of 40 days? Another question, in the opposite. Hasam l'kula alme. There we're talking about the mabul that comes down and it gets spread out for the entire world. Hacha l'Yisrael l'chudei. Here we're talking about the man that's concentrated in one area that comes down only to the Yidden. So v'nafish l'hutvei. So it's possible that it was much higher, it was much more than just 60 amas. So therefore the Gemara leaves this as a question that this comparison that Rabbi Elazar Medoi made there to the mabul is not necessarily understood. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the halachas that we were learning here, B'negei to Yom Kippur, the beginning of the Perek, where it spoke about the Chamisha Inuyim, the 5 different things that we have to not refrain from doing on Yom Kippur. The Gemara comes back to bring the source for them. Asa b'achila. Then it said the other Inuyim in the Mishnah. So Hani Chamisha Inuyim keneged mi. The 5 things mentioned in the Mishnah, what's the corresponding to what is this? Where do we find in the Torah source for this? So even though the Gemara brought before the general source because it says Shabbosen, but here the Gemara is going to bring that it says in the Torah 5 times the expression of Inui on Yom Kippur. Amar Rav Chisda keneged hey Inui shebetayra. It says it 5 times in the Torah in these 5 psukim. Uba'aser, va'ach ba'aser, Shabbos Shabbosen, and then again v'Shabbos Shabbosen, and again another pasuk v'Haisal lechem. And in these 5 psukim it mentions that you should inflict yourself on Yom Kippur. Frag the Gemara, Hane Chamisha Hava. If you look in the list of the Mishnah, is it only 5 things? V'anan shitet nan. It mentions 6. So the Gemara answers, Shtiye b'chlal achila. When it says not to drink, that's included in not eating. It's one thing. Namer Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish said, Minayin l'shtiye sheb'chlal achila. From where do I know that drinking is included in eating? Shenema v'achalta lefnei Hashem elekecha ma'aseh degancha tiroshcha v'yitzarecha. That you should eat, and what does it say? You're eating the ma'aser, and it mentions amongst them tiroshcha. What's tiroshcha? Tirosh chamrehu. Tirosh is wine. V'karele v'achalta. And the pasuk refers to the wine as eating. So the Gemara asks on this, how do you know that this is wine? Mimai. V'dilmed achle al yedei anigrain. Maybe you're mixing the wine together with an anigrain, which is eating. As the Gemara will now say what anigrain is. The Amar Rabbe Bar Shmuel, anigrain is maya de silke. It's water from beets. Achsigrain is maya de kulush laki. Achsigrain is sort of like a vegetable soup. So, which is maybe mixed with wine as well, but it's a food that you eat. It's not just wine alone. So maybe when it says V'achalta lefnei Hashem lekecha and it mentions tiroshcha, it doesn't just refer to drinking wine. So where's the source that achila includes drinking as well? Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, there's another pasuk. Mehacha v'nesata kesef b'chol asher ta'ava nafshecha. You take the money of the ma'aser sheni, and then you come to Yerushalayim and you buy with it whatever you desire. Ba'bakar, b'tzayin, u'bayayin, u'b'sheichar. So it says over here that you have in it by yayin and sheichar. It mentions also sheichar. And sheichar, shtiyuhu. Sheichar is beer and you're drinking it. And right afterwards it says in the pasuk that you eat it. The pasuk refers to it as eating. So the Gemara says again, mimai. How do you know that he's just drinking the beer alone? Maybe he eats it. He eats it through a nigrain, like with this mixing with the beets, as he mentioned before. So the Gemara says, no, sheichar ksiv. Our source was not from the wine. The source was from sheichar, which is midi de mishaker. This refers to something that will get a person drunk. And that's not what, as Rashi says, that's not derech achila. That's only when you drink. So, and nevertheless, the Torah uses the term vachalta. So I see that vachalta is used even for something that you're drinking. On this, the Gemara asks, but v'dilma dveila ki'ilis. Maybe the sheicha here refers to a dveila, a pressed fig that comes from the place ki'ilis, which could make a person drunk. The Tanya, we learned in the Braise, ochal dveila ki'ilis. A person eats this dveila ki'ilis, or v'shasa devash, or he drinks honey, v'cholov, or milk. V'nichnas lamikdash, and he's a kayin, and he goes into the Beis HaMikdash. So what's the halacha then? Chayiv, he's going to be chayiv malchus for entering into the Beis HaMikdash. Why? After he became drunk. Yain v'sheichar al teish, you're not allowed to be drunk and go into the Beis HaMikdash. So you see that there is a kind of food that you could eat and become drunk. So maybe that's what the sheichar refers to. So there's no raya that sheichar refers to just drinking beer. Answers the Gemara, Ella, we must say, Yalef, sheichar minazer. He's learning out the term sheicha that it says here from the term sheicha that it says by a nazir. Mala lon yayin, there is talking about a person that's drinking wine and becoming drunk. Afkan yayin. Here as well it refers to wine, and the Torah uses the term va'achalta. So I see that we use the term va'achila for drinking. The Gemara now goes back to what was mentioned before when the Gemara tried to bring a raya from the term tirosh, that tirosh is wine, and the Gemara asks on this now, v'tirosh chamruhu. Does the term tirosh refer to wine? Vatanya, but we learned in the Braise, haneider min tirosh, a person that makes a neder not to have tirosh. So what is tirosh? Aser b'chol mine mesike. He's not allowed to have anything sweet, which refers to, that as Rashi says, fruits and apples and grapes, but it doesn't refer to umut to biyayin. He's allowed to drink wine. So it's not, tirosh is not wine. Frekte Gemara, v'lav chamruhu. You're telling me that tirosh is not wine, but vaksiv, there's a pasuk that says, v'tirosh yinayviv psulois. Tirosh will open up, psulois, virgins, what was closed when a person drinks wine, it opens up. So you see, that doesn't refer to fruits and things like that. That doesn't make a person drunk, intoxicated, it doesn't open him up, so it does refer to wine. So the Gemara says, no, it's not a raya. The way you read this pasuk here is, davar haba min tirosh. The wine coming from the grapes, Yunayviv b'sulais, will open up sulais. So it doesn't refer to the wine itself. Vaksiv, but there's another pasuk where it says, V'tirosh yikvecha yifroitzu. The tirosh that comes from your vats will open up. So you see that the wine that flows out from the vats opens a person up. Again, the Gemara answers, Davar haba min tirosh yikvecha yifroitzu. It refers to the wine that comes from the tirosh, that comes from the grapes, that will open you up. But the Gemara asks, there's another pasuk where it says, Znus v'yayin v'tirosh yikach leiv. Znus and wine and tirosh will take away your heart. So over here, you see that tirosh is wine. As the Tosfos Rid says, because the Gemara does not want to answer and say that tirosh over here means what comes from the tirosh, because right before that it said yayin. Yayin is what comes from the tirosh, comes from the grapes. So when it says afterwards tirosh, it must be referring to a different type of wine. There's yayin, which is wine that after it ferments and it's wine, and tirosh is fresh after it's pressed from the grapes. And that all takes a person's heart, and even the fresh wine can get a person intoxicated. So the point is that you see that the tirosh refers to the wine, not to the grapes that the wine comes from. Elo, so therefore the Gemara answers, the kula alme tirosh chamruhu. So really, in the psukim we see here that tirosh usually refers to wine. But u'b'nedarim halech achaloshem b'nei yadam. When it comes to the nedarim, the reason why we say that a person is not asked to drink wine, because we follow the way people speak. That's the rule by nedarim, to see what he meant with his neder. And therefore over there, the Braise is saying that when people say tirosh, they're not referring to wine. they're referring to sweet things, sweet fruits and things like that. Sagt the Gemara, V'amai kari le yayin, v'amai kari le tirish. What are the two names for wine? One is yayin and one is tirish. What's the meaning? Yayin shemevi yolala lo'ilam. The meaning of yayin is that it brings yolala, it brings grief into the world. If you drink, as Rashi says, too much wine, and then there's inappropriate behavior, and then it brings all kinds of punishment into the world. Tirish shekolam is garabai. If you overindulge in wine, nasa rosh, you become poor. Rav Kahana asks, in one pasuk it says, Tirosh. It says in the pasuk actually, Tirosh, it's written without a vav, so it's written Tirosh. The Karinon, but the way we pronounce it is Tirosh. So what's the difference? Zacha, if one drinks wine in the proper amount, and he's Zeiche, Nasa Roish, he becomes a head. Loi Zacha, if you don't treat wine properly and you overindulge, Nasa Rosh, you become poor. V'hainu de Rava, this is similar to what Rava said. The Rava asked the question, Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Yisamach. Sorry. It says in the pasuk, Yisamach, but it's written with a sin, so it's written as if it says Yishamach. The Kerinom, but we pronounce it Yisamach with a sin. So what's the difference? Zocha misamcha. If you treat the wine properly, Yizayche, it makes you happy. Loi zacha, you don't treat wine properly, so then mishamemai. It will make the person completely shmama, like he's in a desert. The Marsha says that the ches is interchangeable with the hey, so it's as if it says yishama, that he becomes like a shmama. This is what Rava said regarding himself. Chamre, the wine that I drank, and verechani, and the different besamim that I smelled, pikchen. These are the things that opened my mind and my heart and made me smart. Gemara comes back now to the other things that we spoke about in the Mishnah regarding the inuyim of Yom Kippur. So it mentioned after the drinking, eating and drinking, so there's rechitza and sicha. So you're not allowed to wash in Yom Kippur and not allowed to anoint yourself. So minalan, from where do we know the ikri inuy? That they are also referred to as things that are affliction. Chsiv, there's a pasuk where it says in Daniel, Lechem chamudais le'achalti, I did not eat bread, ubasa v'yayin le'boil pi, and I did not have meat or wine come into my mouth. V'soich le'sachti, and I did not apply anything on my skin. So what is this pasuk referring to? My lechem chamudais, what does it mean? That the gishmak, good bread, le'achalti, didn't eat? Rav Yudah bereded Rav Shmuel bashilet, afilaname dechitidach yaisa le'achal. Bread that's made from clean flour, from wheat, he did not eat. That's the pasuk that Daniel says. Now, how do we know from here so that what it's written in that pasuk refers to an union of inui, affliction? Because after that, the pasuk says, "Vayomer Eli," the Eibusha says to him, "Al tira Daniel, do not be afraid. From the time when you gave to your heart to understand, to afflict yourself, it says, your words are going to be listened to, I come to you to listen to your words. So here we see that when it says in the pasuk, he didn't eat bread, and he did not drink wine, and he also did not he did not apply, he did not anoint himself. So I see that sicha is also an affliction. Ashkechan sicha. So I see in the pasuk it says this regarding sicha. Rechitza minalam. But how do I know that washing yourself is also inui? There's a different pasuk where it says this is speaking about a klala, and there it says vatove kamayim bekirbai. The negative. In the negative, it'll come to you like water inside, or kishamim batzmaisav, and like the oil that comes onto your bones. So therefore, we're comparing. Gemara now understands the pshat here is just like a person that's not drinking water, but when he's washing himself in water, we're comparing also applying oil to your skin to washing yourself in water. So therefore, what do we see from here? That we're comparing actually, as the Gemara will now explain, that we're comparing in the reverse. We're comparing washing yourself to applying oil to your skin. So just like we brought now the source that you're not allowed to apply anything to your skin, sicha is also an inui, so too you're not allowed to go into the water to wash yourself. But the Gemara asks, ve'eme kishtiya. Maybe the way to compare this is we're comparing over here to drinking water. We compare applying oil to your skin to drinking water, not to washing yourself in water. We're looking for a source that washing yourself in water is going to be an affliction. So the Gemara says, no, dumya de shemen. We're comparing the two, and therefore the water that it speaks about in this pasuk is compared to the oil. Ma shemen ma'avroi, just like the oil that a person is anointing to his body is on the outside. Af mayim ma'avroi, the water mentioned there is also speaking about not a person that's drinking the water, but a person that's entering into water, washing himself. Fragt the Gemara, this is not a good source for this, because in a Braisa we learned that a Tana compares it in the opposite direction. As we said in the Braisa, it's nan minayin, or this is actually in a Mishnah, Masechta Shabbos. Minayin l'siche shehi kishtiye b'yayim ha'kipurim. From where do I know that when one applies something on his skin, that it's compared to drinking on Yom Kippur and it's not allowed? So it says, even though there's no complete proof, but zeichel davar, you have a remez in the pasuk shenema v'tovai kamayim b'kirbay, the water that he drinks, like water that you drink, ukeshamim ba'atzmaisav, and like the oil that you apply to your skin. So you see over here in this Mishnah that it's comparing it in the reverse, that the water that it speaks about is speaking about drinking water, and then it says that we compare anointing yourself to the water that you drink. So you can't say that we're comparing the water that you enter into, the water that you're bathing in, to the oil that you apply to your skin. So therefore Rav Ashi says, you're right. The source for this that you're not allowed to bathe yourself is from that pasuk that we brought before by Daniel. And I did not apply anything to my skin, and it uses a double lashon, soich loy sachti. So therefore we learn out that includes not only actually applying something to your skin, but also entering into water, bathing yourself is also not allowed.